There have been several different iterations of Superman in the decades of superhero television and movies. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. From Christopher Reeve to Henry Cavill to Tyler Hoechlin, many notable actors have taken on this iconic role. Veteran director Zack Snyder's and actor Tyler Hoechlin's takes on the role of Superman during a similar situation showcases the creative difference. Premiering in 2021, Superman and Lois is a drama show following the life of Tyler Hoechlin's Superman and Bitsy Tulloch's Lois Lane. The show found worldwide fame and critical acclaim for its varied take on the role of Clark Kent and his family. And not just actors, but each director had a different vision for the character of Superman. Arguably, Zack Snyder's vision for Superman in Man of Steel was quite controversial. However, the CW show Superman and Lois have taken a different approach. Cars and farmhouses are eroded and decimated. However, Superman and Lois showed one thing differently than Henry Cavill and Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. In the CW show, John and Jordan Kent, the two sons of Clark Kent, fight alongside their dad against Doomsday. The recently released Season 4 Episode 9 of the show, titled To Live and Die Again, featured an iconic battle where Lex Luthor's Doomsday gives a reign of terror to the town of Smallville, where Superman belonged to. Was the year 2013 when Zack Snyder released Man of Steel. Starring Henry Cavill in the lead role of Clark Kent aka Superman, the film followed General Zod's invasion on Earth and Kal-El defending its residents. The decimation is limited while John and Jordan Kent also showcase their selfless side as they help civilians and shops get out of harm's way. In the end, the trio ends up fighting the Kryptonian monster together. The attack on Smallville was also created by veteran director Zack Snyder, however his version was closer to reality. Being the first entry of Snyder into the DCU, the film gained much traction and a fair share of controversy. In the movie, General Zod carries out an attack on the town of Smallville, similar to Superman and Lois, but there is one key difference in both versions, with Zack Snyder's vision being closer to reality. Superman fights General Zod alone, raw, without any support or any proper experience/training. The fight is pretty brutal as Smallville gets decimated alongside loads of destruction and explosion. This key difference of an untrained Superman fighting General Zod in his hometown without any backup makes Snyder's vision a bit more closer to reality than Tyler Hoechlin's. Although opinions differ, the two versions are equally different and equally entertaining for millions of viewers to watch. With high ratings and worldwide fame, both Man of Steel and Superman and Lois are available to stream on Max in the US. Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon director cuts were a result of some savvy negotiations with Netflix. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. Zack Snyder's time with DC may be a thing of the past. However, he continues to work on epic franchises, with his original creation, Rebel Moon, having seen the release of 2 movies already. The talented director has every intention of converting Rebel Moon into a space opera franchise, much like the likes of Star Wars and Star Trek. However, what sets his franchise apart is the fact that despite the 2 movies not getting an R rating, they have received respective Snyder cuts that are full of gore, violence, and everything else one can expect from an R-rated franchise. Regardless, as it turns out, the talented director had to undergo a fair share of negotiations to make his Snyder cuts a reality. He revealed that it was a barter between him and Netflix that allowed the 2 movies thus far to have both a PG-13 version and an R-rated Zack Snyder version. In an interview with Real Blend podcast, Zack Snyder discussed the reasoning behind the director's cut and how it came to be. He explained that Netflix, although not burdened by box office concerns, sought a version of the movie that would appeal to a broader audience. This led to the development of a more commercially viable PG-13 version with a runtime of around 2 hours. Well, there was a conversation around the rating and the runtime where they felt like we could make a slightly more commercial version of this movie if we kept the rating to PG-13 and the runtime to right around 2 hours. However, this commercial cut wasn't the movie Snyder had initially envisioned. Known for his darker, more mature themes, Snyder had written Rebel Moon as an R-rated film. The negotiations with Netflix resulted in a compromise. While the streaming platform would get its PG-13 version, Snyder would also be able to release his original R-rated director's cut. So that was like a conversation that we just felt like based on their data that would be more viewable. And so I was like, okay, so that was part of the negotiation. I had written definitely an R-rated movie, and so it was a conversation like, hey, if we say yes, is there a way is a PG-13 version of this movie could happen? And I was like, absolutely. The director's cut of the two movies allowed Snyder to maintain an in-depth exploration of the narrative and characters, elements that had to be trimmed in the PG-13 version. Snyder communicated with his cast about the different cuts, ensuring that they understood what would be included in each version. The R-rated cut promises to stay true to Snyder's established storytelling style, offering fans a closer look at his original vision. Despite the compromises made for commercial viability, Snyder's creative vision for Rebel Moon remains largely intact. The director meticulously planned the different cuts, ensuring that the PG-13 versions met Netflix's requirements while the R-rated cuts retained the depth and intensity of his original script. And while his latest two movies have not performed as well as he would have hoped, the director's cuts did improve the overall experience and resulted in a darker, gorier narrative, the kind of which Snyder's fans are more accustomed to. All versions of the two Rebel Moon movies are available to be streamed on Netflix. Of course, the approach is not new for the director, who has previously released lauded directorial cuts of movies such as Justice League, Watchmen, and now parts 1 and 2 of Rebel Moon. Despite two different versions of Rebel Moon being released, one scene from Watchmen seems to gain the top spot in his work for Zack Snyder. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. Zack Snyder is one of the most fascinating directors in Hollywood right now. While his films are blockbuster-scale action epics, they get an extremely divisive response, and each project's acclaim differs. After hitting it out of the park with Army of the Dead, Snyder came back with the negatively received space opera Rebel Moon. Filmmaker Zack Snyder has some amazing visuals to boast of in his filmography, even if the films themselves have been divisive. Be it Superman's flight in Man of Steel or the incredible opening montage in Watchmen, the man knows how to create jaw-dropping imagery that turns superheroes into gods. While there are many to boast of, Snyder recently revealed what his favorite scene to shoot in the latest Rebel Moon films was. The filmmaker released an R-rated director's cut for both chapters of the space opera on Netflix and revealed that he was excited for fans to watch the R-rated version of his favorite scene in an interview with The Hollywood Handle. Snyder spoke about multiple details in the sci-fi film series and the upcoming projects in the franchise. Responding to a fan question about his favorite scene to shoot in Rebel Moon, he said, "Korra fighting the guys in the barn, killing all the Imperial guys in the barn. That felt old school. It was like old school fighting and shooting and really just going, shot to shot, and really telling that story was really fun. And I can't wait for you to see the R-rated version of it." The scene in question sees Korra, played by Sofia Boutella, barge into a barn where a group of Imperial soldiers are holding a few villagers hostage. Many fans criticized the scene for its overuse of slow motion and lack of blood. The two-part saga saw a Star Wars-inspired story of rebels who go against an intergalactic empire after their home world is threatened. Released